All right. So let's begin with a brief introduction on your end. Could you please tell us about your journey within corporate India and your journey towards your leadership position?
All right. Thank you so much, India, for having me here. My name is Nisha. I work at Plum. I build communications, and I'm also building an editorial property called Humanize, which covers the intersection of work and life. Um, so I have been working for, I think, about 16 years now, and my journey towards leadership has been one of actually a lot of pivots. So my career, while I started completely in PR, I think I've been lucky to kind of navigate communications. I was lucky to navigate community. So at one point of my career, I felt like I got a lot of opportunities, and that really helped me also understand where is it that I want to go. In terms of getting into leadership, what I feel is that there's still a long way for women. While so what I want to say is leadership can be a tag, and leadership can also mean more than a tag, right? So while you have the tags, sometimes you don't have the exact role, and you know so my own journey has been that I've been lucky with tags, I guess. I've also been lucky with probably, in some organizations having a say. But to me, I think the biggest thing about leadership is when A, you are trusted in the organization, B, your word means something, which technically still means that you are trusted. Three, you have a voice and say in macro decision making of your organization in addition to your function. So what I am also trying to say here is that in a lot of ways, if leadership has been about designations, yes, I can tick off certain boxes, but if we're talking about the latter, then there's a long way to go.
I completely agree. And that's a very interesting aspect that you've brought in as well. Um, One thing that like to add as a follow up question for this, with regards to the designation versus actual authority, um, where do you think, or why do you think there is a gap there? Because that's not usually the case with um, our male counterparts. The authority that comes with a specific designation that is perceived as a leadership designation uh, is almost a given, right? But the same does not translate when it comes to a female leader. And one of the main perks of a leadership position is the added authority and added trust from the organization that allows you to craft policies or redesign them from a business and operations perspective as well. Um, so, where do you think that uh, gap is coming in, and why do you think that happens? Why is there such resistance?
Yeah, I guess one reads a lot and then one has to perceive a lot. You read a lot about this, right? But when you live in a system like it, sometimes it's so hard to find an answer as to why is this exactly the way it is. So, I mean, at least from my observation, I can tell you, right? Like sometimes it's just such inherent bias. It's such a common answer, but I mean, it's there. It's there at every step. And much as you do, whatever you do, right? How can you go inside and change somebody's DNA? Like, I have not found the best way to do that. Um, no amount of conversation sometimes can help certain individuals who do not see it that way. And there's nothing one can do about it. And I don't even sound defeatist. I mean, I am not a defeatist person, but then what do? You just accept it. The second thing is, I think that us as women, right, we don't claim things as easily, maybe because of imposter or whatever it may be. I may be given a designation, but I won't walk that designation immediately. I'll want to earn it, and I'll want to, put in all the hard work, and I'll want to, feel like, um, like that I made an effort to reach there, etc. But I feel like with again, I don't want to generalize this as much, but maybe male counterparts already walk that designation even before they have it, right? Like you'll see their attitude itself is all about that designation. I feel like our attitude is all about, hey, give us whatever and we're going to be eternally grateful.
Hmm.
And I think, I don't know if we're conditioned that way as a society, or we're conditioned that way again as us being women, and our gender being a certain way. Like, I don't know if it's subservient, but the fact that we're always grateful for every little thing probably also makes us, I would say, a little diffident, a little hesitant to ask for what is our own. So, this is really like my own, where I'm really, really answering this is not of whatever I have read, but whatever I have experienced.
Yeah. So that's also the reason we want to have this discussion, because the experiential insights are more important than just what data that we come across. Um, while we do have patterns that we can identify in data, um, what actually matters is understanding the entire holistic process, and the kind of barriers that we face on a minute level, on a macro as well as a micro level, and that starts not just from you know external parties, but also, like you said, the deep conditioning that we have internally as well. So thank you. That's very insightful.
I hope.
Um Moving on to the next question about diversity and inclusivity in within the corporate sector in India. Until very recently, and even now, actually, DEI has always been like an initiative, like a checkbox that you need to just show that, oh, look at this, I have done it, and I've done my due diligence. And but that's not worked, right, in terms of actually getting ROIs, despite having invested, uh, you know, a lot of money in these kind of programs, whether it's employee engagement or specific DEI kind of engagement related programs. It's not really brought about any substantial change, nor has it brought any ROI to meaningful ROI to companies and industries, because otherwise you would have seen an uptick in innovation, an uptick in uh, culture change and all of that, right? So given all of that, the historical context and the current scenario within uh, corporate India, uh, what's your uh, vision for future leadership within startups, specifically since you are within the startup sector? And what do you think is necessary to kind of uh, tie in diversity into your operational vision and mission, rather than having it as a standalone initiative or a checkbox?
So, see, I think I was just writing this some time back. I feel like DEI should be decentralized in a way that um no one person can own DEI, right? And when we talk about the fact that, oh, as a leader you have to support DEI, sometimes it's the job of somebody else to educate the leader that probably you're not the right person to own DEI. You don't think about it, and especially when it comes to a startup that is really, you know, in times like these. Looking at so many other existential questions,
Yeah.
really, like, if I was in the place of a founder, even I would have been like, someone should have, maybe I'll also need a prodding or two, that, hey, you're only thinking about one thing, maybe you should think of others. So I just want to say that, and I want to acknowledge that a founder and their priority, or leaders in their priorities, are, you know um, in a certain spectrum, whereas DEI has to be decentralized. It cannot just sit with one person and then you expect that that one person is going to be like, the center of it, and then, like, have teams, and like, that would have been the ideal scenario, like, and we don't live in an ideal world. So it's not going to happen. That's not the way DEI can exist. I would say that, in the hands of a founder like Elon Musk or whatever, you'd rather just forget DEI. Like, that's over. That conversation ends.
Yes.
So, what is needed is, I feel like, um, you need much more than this, right? You need open conversations. You need more allies in leadership. You need that sometimes, some people who are in the boardroom, are able to voice their opinion about certain initiatives which are not only revenue, right? And you also need that there is more representation. Unfortunately, we're still talking about this in 2024, and it really upsets me, because by now we should have moved on to other issues of DEI, and here we are still fighting for women to be represented in a boardroom, which is very unfortunate, actually, because clearly people haven't been able to either see what that brings in, or there is no data, or I don't know how. Are you just tone deaf? Like, I am unable to, point my fingers to answer this one at all, because to me it's just natural, right? Like, DI, just keep DI aside. Based on merit, I refuse to believe that women can't be in the boardroom. Like, just pure merit. Forget DEI, park it aside for the time being. Then why are we having this discussion, right? Like, it just feels like, this is one of those afterthoughts that anybody has when, probably somebody has told them that, hey, you need to look at the culture of your organization, or hey, something's not working, or, oh, by the way, statutorily you need this one woman in your board, so you better do something about it. So I think, again, I'll come back to the fact that I rambled also a little, sorry, but I'll come back to the fact that, again, I really don't, I don't know if this is conditioning. I don't know if this is a certain kind of bias that exists. That, what, if a woman is sitting on the board, she's perhaps the diversity candidate, or, she's that candidate who, you have a quota for, right? Like, so she's just there by quota or whatever, and I think that that's failing this entire conversation of DEI. And to me, therefore, DEI is losing its teeth actually, because we are only talking about DEI, um, and equating it to gender, which
Yeah.
is a very, very big pity in 2024. Like, that means we've not done much. Like, I'm very blatant about this opinion. It really means we've not done much.
No, I definitely I agree with you. One of the my major pet peeves is that within a corporate India, DEI structure and perspective is very similar to the way that people do DEI in the West, uh, which doesn't have any relevance to the Indian context. And which is perhaps why we are comfortable only talking about women when it comes to DEI. We do not talk about caste representation. We do not talk about, other minorities within the Indian context. We do not talk about, um, forget about the queer space whatsoever. So I definitely do agree with you. Um, but what do you think is a possible um strategy that would, either from like a from a government perspective or from a organizational perspective? For instance, one of the things that we noticed when we were doing a little bit of research on it was that once the Posh Act came into being, there was a significant rise in women's participation across India. Now, uh, unfortunately, the reality is that while many both startups, medium-sized businesses, and large multinational corporations within India actually don't have a posh committee, despite that being a legal matter. That's actually within, like 40th percentile, according to a Deloitte report. And but still, just the that act being made into law uh, saw like a major uptick of women's participation in the workforce. Similarly, right now we have the BRSR, which is the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report, and even within its nascent stages, it requires some of the major companies to not just list their gender diversity within the reporting structure, but also mention how many women they have in their leadership and board structures. So we have seen some companies make changes because of that. So from that viewpoint, do you think center or state-based policies might help, or do you think um, maybe from if you look at the multi-generational workforce angle, and if you look at the propensity of younger millennials and Gen Zs being extremely hard to retain, uh, and the work culture uh, having to change because of that, not because it's a conscious thing, but it's a reactionary thing. Do you think those kind of changes uh, might evolve into some sort of strategy that might kind of galvanize women's position in leaderships and women's participation also, so that we can finally move beyond women in India?
Yeah, so I think, see, one of the things that I have been a big endorser of is, even if you have five women in your organization, right? Talk to them to figure what are their challenges, and talk to them to figure uh, where they see themselves in the organization, right? Because sometimes we forget that our own employees, being our biggest flag bearers and champions, are also observing how we, as an organization, are functioning, right? So best feedback will come to you from the inside actually, not the outside. So one of the things is continuously hone women within the organization, right? Continuously, like I said, trust is important. So if you kind of give the women a position of power where they are able to talk freely about how they feel as being women in the organization, and if they can give feedback that actually can, like, even if you see one aspect of your feedback being executed, it makes a big difference to the women within. And then you'll also have women who are champions who can bring in other women to your organization. So
Right.
I feel like that is one thing. And I've also observed a lot of companies talk about, oh, we are finding it very hard to hire women, and we are very hard to find it very hard to hire women who are leaders. But then you're not even considering the women who are within your organization to hone them as leaders. You have already hired them, so then there has to be a certain trajectory even for them.
Yeah.
So that is one thing I feel. Look, about the state and the government, if they are able to make these laws, sometimes my worry is these laws shouldn't become detrimental to the women who are getting into the position because of these laws, right? Because it sounds almost like a quota system, and many organizations might just do that because they have to fulfill that criteria. So I'd say that another strategy is, don't look at it as quota at all, right? Have the same metrics you have for everybody in leadership, and whoever, whichever gender, like, or if the person is beyond the binary, whoever fits that particular role is your ideal candidate. It's as simple as that. But it's not about, hey, oh, I just need a woman because HR, PR are roles for women, so I just need to hire women. No, I think we moved past those stages. Just, if you have to just simply create a qualification guide, see who's fitting in over there best, and that person's your leader. It's as simple as that. And number three, when you have somebody who is a leader, and who is possibly a woman leader, give her a chance. Don't I've also seen people judging women leaders much faster than they would judge male leaders, and of course, we have on Humanize itself written about all the tags that the woman would come with, right from being aggressive to bossy to whatnot to whatnot. Look, everyone can have their own style. I think we should stop judging and using these adjectives for a woman if she is a leader. And lastly, I'll tell you the biggest problem. Uh, and I was reading about this recently. It's becoming a big deal in South Korea. Women don't even want to take a single sabbatical. They don't want to get married. They don't want to have children because sabbaticals impact their career ladders. Look at how it is in India, right? Because as a woman, even if I have 15 years of work experience, and similarly a male counterpart has 15 years of work experience, what if I have taken 3 years off, because of conditions in life or because of situations? I'm obviously going to trail when it comes to designation. I'm obviously going to trail when it comes to salary. Nobody is going to see why have I got, I mean, nobody is going to appreciate the fact that my sabbatical was for a very valid reason. Which is why in India men don't even fully take their paternity leave because they're so worried about that sabbatical. So I think that um, as a society itself, we've got to change the way we perceive and look at certain things. And, right from sabbaticals to many other things, to merit. So these are the ways I would think, like a mature or at least a sensible organization should look at how they foster leaders and leadership talent.
Okay. Thank you. Uh, that was a different perspective from what I've usually heard, but then it was still uh, interesting to hear. One final question for you. Um, with regards to the current underrepresentation of women in leadership roles, and this goes to both the lack of numbers of women in leadership roles at boards, and also the lack of authority once they're provided that designation. Uh, can you think of, or do you think there's one or two main factors that contribute to this lack?
The lack of, sorry, what?
What do you think are, the main factors that is contributing to this underrepresentation of women in leadership roles? Whether that is underrepresentation with regards to number or underrepresentation with regards to actual authority.
Yeah. So, look, it's definitely one of these pointers is the fact that I may have, like I told you, I may have 15 years of work ex, but I have many factors sometimes as a woman that, put me back in my career ladder, because I would have either taken a sabbatical, or I would have dropped off, or I may not have received that same promotion somebody else, say my male counterpart, has received in a previous organization, and I'm still trying to play catch up all the time.
Mm.
That is definitely one of the things I have seen, I have read, I have experienced. The other possible factors are that, at least what I hear very often is, oh, we are not able to hire women leaders. I will differ there, like it's not so hard, but if you ask an organization, many a times this is one of the answers you will hear, that they can't hire. Three, I think, what's happening is, look, you have a lot of women in middle management. What you're not doing is honing them to become leaders, and what you're not doing is giving them a chance. Sometimes they have to drop off. Are we having So somebody pointed out to me recently that there is a company that actually promoted a woman into a leadership role when she was going on a maternity break of 6 months. Now that's a very big deal, that's such a noble, and it's not even noble, it's just such a logical thing to do if you think about it, because she was being assessed for her previous performance.
Mm.
Okay? And she deserved a promotion before she just went off, and she was going to come back with this promotion. So um, while women take these breaks, they suddenly start feeling obligated that they even have a job.
Mm.
They are even brought back. Their entire 6 months, they don't have appraisals. Like, they don't know what to say in their appraisal. So they feel like, hey, how can we demand a promotion? Or how can we even demand a raise? The fact is that the organization, already paid for 6 months of my maternity leave. So, all of these factors are actually detrimental to why we don't see, or, to the cause of women in leadership, right? Because women have to continuously keep falling off the career ladder, climbing it back again, jumping off, coming back at another level again. So it's a bit of a snakes and ladders kind of a thing for them, and every time you're bitten, you literally start from scratch.
Uh,
So that's the sad part.
yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's also similar to what someone else was uh, telling us about this, that there is a very close correlation between the professional and personal milestones for women, right? When you get to the age of senior leadership or like middle management, for example, you usually that's when women would be expected to get married, or even actually in some places when you join the workforce is when you expected to get married because you just finished your graduation. When you enter the stage in your life where you could be considered for a senior leadership position, that's when you probably uh, have parenthood as a milestone. And all of these appear to be uh, almost punishable,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, whereas that's not the same case with the male workforce. If you're regardless of the fact that there are some companies that provide paternity. Again, the length of the paternity and maternity leave differs. So there is this inherent bias about how much of a parent a woman needs to be versus a man needs to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I agree with that. Sorry, even I was dabbling there.
No, but that's like, if you just observe it, and I'll tell you what the other thing is, and my own story, I have never taken a career break, or I've never had a sabbatical. But like, sometimes I'm just told that, hey, probably this is the end for you, because this is really where your own role stands. So sometimes it's also, I don't know, it's probably the role that women pick also, right? Like, if women are mostly in HR, or women are mostly in PR, there's
Yeah,
a certain glass ceiling, even otherwise.
yeah,
So whatever you do, you can't climb up and become the CEO unless you start your own company. So
mm,
that's another factor to be considered. So what's the industry the woman is in is, I think, also a consideration that we have to look at when we talk about women in leadership. Or maybe we just have to say that, hey, irrespective of industry, there have to be a certain number of women in leadership. So I'm just saying that there's that little nuance also of industry.
fair enough. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have for you today, Nisha. Thank you very much for speaking to me.
Not at all.
Is there anything you'd like to add before I stop recording?
Nothing actually. Look, I'll only say this, right? Like, to me, this whole thing, this conversation about DEI is really not a conversation about women. It's about individuals. It's about letting people be the way they are, and can workplaces accommodate whoever is however. Of course, having certain standard rules and regulations, we do understand, we are all adults, we understand that workplaces will have those rules and regulations, but I think that they have to be made ignoring certain biases of gender, of you know even sometimes I would believe educational institutions, caste, and things like that, because you're here for merit, you're here for what you're doing as work. So if we just keep it to that, we probably will understand DEI better than we do today.
Yes. I mean, we probably wouldn't require DEA if that was the
Yeah,
case.
I mean, because that's just how you would fair and square treat another individual.